Have you ever witnessed something so shocking that, for a moment, your body forgets how to breathe? My name is Vera Hutchins, I'm 73 years old, and I've lived my whole life beside Lake Mendota in Madison, Wisconsin. That lake has seen decades of birthdays, barbecues, laughter, and love. But on one quiet morning, it almost became a graveyard. I was sitting in my sunroom with a cup of lukewarm coffee, watching the mist rise off the water like it always does in early summer. The house was silent, too silent for a place that now held 3 generations under one roof. That silence was what made me notice her. My daughter-in-law, Brooke, stepped out into the yard wearing dark clothes and a look that didn't belong to the woman I thought I knew. She moved with a stiffness that didn't match her usual graceful pretense. In her hands, she was carrying something heavy, a navy blue suitcase. At first, I thought she was going on a trip. Maybe she was leaving, finally. But the way she kept glancing around, toward the windows, toward the trees, told me this wasn't a trip. This was a secret. My heart started to pound, a rhythm too fast for a woman my age, but I couldn't look away. I stood up slowly, my knees protesting like old hinges, and pressed closer to the window. Brooke walked all the way to the dock, our family dock, the one my late husband, Robert, built with his own hands 47 years ago. The suitcase bumped against her leg with every step. The water shimmered like glass. She paused at the edge. Looked around one last time. And before I could even process what I was seeing, she lifted that suitcase and hurled it into the lake. The sound of the splash sliced through the stillness. I should have turned away. I should have called someone. But something inside me, something older than fear, kept me frozen, staring. Because the moment that suitcase hit the water, I heard it. A muffled thump. A faint scratching. A sound no one ever forgets, a whimper. For a split second, my brain refused to believe it. But my heart knew. There was something alive inside that suitcase. Brooke. I screamed before I even realized I was moving. She spun around. Our eyes met across the yard, and in that instant, I saw something raw and hateful staring back at me. She didn't speak. She didn't plead. She just smiled, a small, twisted smile, and watched me run toward her. I don't remember the pain in my legs or the ache in my chest. All I remember is the sound of my own heartbeat echoing in my ears as I reached the dock. The suitcase was already sinking, bubbles rising from where it had hit the water. God, no, I whispered, dropping my cane and stumbling to my knees. I reached for the edge of the dock, my fingers trembling, the cold air cutting through my skin. The faint whimper came again, softer now. Desperate. That was the moment something inside me snapped wide open. Grief, fear, age, it all vanished. There was only instinct. I kicked off my shoes and jumped. The shock of the cold water nearly stole the air from my lungs. But I pushed forward, arms burning, eyes straining against the murky waves. I wasn't thinking about my arthritis or my years. I was thinking about that sound. And I swore to myself, whatever was in that suitcase, would not let it die. Before I tell you what I found inside, I want to ask you a favor. Hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Because what happened next will make you question how well you really know the people closest to you. After that morning at the lake, I kept asking myself how I missed the signs. How did I not see the danger growing right inside my own home? Maybe because danger doesn't always arrive with thunder, it comes quietly, wearing a smile. It all began 3 years ago, right after my husband, Robert, passed away. Losing him was like losing the rhythm of my days. The silence in this house used to comfort me when he was alive. After he was gone, it felt like the walls were holding their breath, waiting for something that would never return. When my son Daniel called to say he wanted to move back home with his wife, Brooke, and their little girl, Lily, I thought my prayers had been answered. He said, "Mom, you shouldn't be alone. Let us be with you." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe her. At first, Brooke seemed perfect. Sweet voice, polite manners, always eager to help. She'd bring me tea, fluff the pillows on the couch, and tell me I reminded her of her late mother. But slowly, like rust spreading on old metal, her kindness started to change. It began with small things. My jewelry box wasn't where I left it. My mail started disappearing. My bank statements, my doctor's letters, even the note from my attorney about updating my will, all gone. When I asked Brooke about them, she would laugh softly and say, "Oh, Vera, you probably misplaced them. You know how things get confusing at your age." At your age. Those 3 words cut sharper than a knife. Each time she said them, I felt a piece of myself shrink. And Daniel, my sweet, hard-working boy, never noticed. He works long hours at the hospital, and when he comes home, Brooke already has dinner on the table and a soft story ready about how worried she is for me. "She got confused again today, honey. I think she's getting worse." And Daniel would sigh and take her hand, while I sat there in silence, watching my own son believe that I was losing my mind. I began writing things down. Dates, details, odd little happenings. I hid that notebook under my mattress. At first, it made me feel foolish, like some paranoid old woman, but deep down, I knew something wasn't right. Even Lily, my 8-year-old granddaughter, started to change. She used to follow me everywhere, begging for stories about her grandfather. Now, she avoided me. She'd flinch whenever Brooke raised her voice. One night, I woke to the sound of muffled crying coming from Lily's room. I stood outside her door, listening. Then I heard Brooke's whisper, cold and low. "Stop that noise right now, or you know what happens." My blood went cold. The next morning, I tried to talk to Daniel. I told him Lily seemed frightened, that Brooke's behavior didn't feel right. But he only rubbed his eyes and said, "Mom, Brooke loves Lily. You're just overthinking things. Please, try to get along. Try to get along." He didn't see Brooke's little smirk over his shoulder as he spoke. She knew she had him wrapped around her finger. Over the weeks that followed, I began to feel like a ghost in my own home. Brooke would forget to serve me dinner, hide my medication, or unplug my hearing aids before an important phone call. Every time I tried to speak up, she'd smile and tilt her head, like I was a child misbehaving. "You must be tired, Vera. Let me handle things. It's better that way." The way she said it made my skin crawl. The only thing that kept me sane was my notebook. Every cruel word, every missing envelope, every strange mistake, I wrote it down. I wasn't crazy. I was awake. But the more I noticed, the worse her behavior became. One afternoon, I found Brooke standing at my desk, flipping through my papers. When she saw me, she didn't even look embarrassed. She just smiled and said, "I was organizing your bills. You really should let me take care of this. Finances can be confusing at your age." That phrase again. Her voice was sugar-coated, her eyes sharp. That night, I lay awake thinking of Robert. He used to say, "Vera, trust your instincts. When your stomach knots up, it's for a reason." My stomach had been in knots for months. But Daniel believed every word Brooke said. She had planted the idea of a memory care facility in his mind. I overheard her whispering about it one night while washing dishes. "She's not safe on her own, Daniel. What if she hurts herself, or Lily?" That broke me. To think that my own daughter-in-law could twist love into suspicion like that. And the worst part? Daniel nodded. I realized then that Brooke wasn't just trying to make me doubt myself. She was erasing me, piece by piece, memory by memory, until the day she could take everything I had and make it look like I'd willingly handed it over. But she didn't know I was documenting her every move. She didn't know I'd been preparing. Before I go on, let me ask you something. Have you ever had someone smile to your face while secretly planning your downfall? If you have, tell me in the comments. Because the moment I realized the truth, I knew Brooke's smile wasn't kindness. It was a warning. It's strange how cruelty can hide inside small, everyday moments. You don't see it coming because it doesn't storm in. It seeps in quietly until you realize it's taken over everything you love. Brooke had a way of turning every conversation into proof that I was losing touch. If I misplaced my glasses, she'd sigh and say, "Don't worry, Vera. It happens to everyone your age." If I questioned where my bank card went, she'd shake her head like a disappointed nurse and tell Daniel, "She's getting confused again." She said it often enough that he started repeating it. That's how she did it, one soft suggestion at a time. At first, I thought maybe I was losing my memory. So I tested myself. I'd hide a key under the same flower pot every day, write it down in my notebook, and check it each morning. For weeks, it stayed there. Until one day, it was gone. When I asked about it, Brooke chuckled and said she'd moved it for safety. Safety. That word tasted bitter. I began noticing Lily's eyes. She carried the kind of sadness children shouldn't know. When Daniel was at work, she'd grow quiet, eating her meals fast, avoiding Brooke's gaze. Once, when I reached to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, she flinched. That broke something in me. I waited until Brooke went grocery shopping one afternoon and gently asked Lily, "Sweetheart, has Mommy been mean to you?" Her lips trembled. She opened her mouth, but before she could speak, Brooke's car pulled into the driveway. The fear that washed over that child's face said more than words ever could. From that day on, I stopped trying to reason with Brooke. You can't reason with someone who's already decided you're expendable. She began taking control of the house entirely. My favorite armchair disappeared for cleaning. My photo albums were moved to storage. Even my husband's tools vanished from the garage. Every piece of my history was quietly being stripped away. But what kept me awake at night wasn't the loss of things. It was the feeling that Brooke was preparing for something. I didn't know what, but I could feel it like a storm pressing against the windows. Daniel never saw it. Brooke made sure of that. Every time he was home, she transformed into the perfect wife and daughter-in-law. She'd bring me tea, help Lily with homework, and speak softly about family unity. By the time he left for his overnight shifts, that mask would drop. One evening, I overheard her on the phone in the kitchen. She didn't know I was nearby. Her voice was low, sharp, controlled. "It's almost done. 2 weeks, maybe less." 2 weeks until what? That same night, I heard her in Daniel's study going through files. Papers rustled. A drawer closed. I stood in the hallway, heart pounding, my hand gripping my cane so tightly my knuckles turned white. When she came out, she froze. We stared at each other for what felt like forever. "You scared me, Vera," she said with that fake laugh. "Couldn't sleep?" "I could ask you the same thing," I answered. Her smile faltered. For the first time, I saw the real Brooke, the one who didn't bother pretending. Cold, deliberate, hollow. She stepped closer, lowering her voice until it was barely a whisper. "You should rest more, Vera. You're not as sharp as you used to be. People might start thinking you can't take care of yourself." That wasn't concern. It was a threat wrapped in honey. From that night forward, I locked my bedroom door. I even placed a chair against it while I slept. I didn't tell Daniel. He wouldn't have believed me. Then came the day she, accidentally, gave me the wrong pills. I woke up on the kitchen floor, dizzy, my head spinning. Brooke stood over me, feigning panic, clutching her phone. "Oh, Vera, thank God you're okay. You must have mixed up your medication again." But I hadn't. I knew exactly what I'd taken. She was the one who'd set out the pills that morning. I decided that day that if something happened to me, I'd make sure someone knew the truth. I hid my notebook inside a shoebox in the closet. I even wrote Daniel's name on the front in case I never got the chance to explain. A week later, Brooke started whispering about sending me to assisted living. She told Daniel it would be temporary. She said I needed supervision, that I was becoming a danger to myself and Lily. She was laying the foundation for my disappearance. But the night before everything fell apart, I overheard something that confirmed my worst fear. Brooke was on the phone again, pacing near the window. Her voice was calm, businesslike. The policies are active. Once it's done, the payout will be in place within 30 days. My blood ran cold. Policies. Payout. Those words weren't about me misplacing mail anymore. She was planning something that involved both me and Lily. I remember standing there in the dark, trembling from head to toe, thinking of Robert's old words. Never ignore what your heart knows, Vera. If something feels wrong, it is. That feeling had become unbearable. But I didn't realize how close the danger truly was, until the next morning, when I saw Brooke standing by the kitchen window at sunrise, dressed in black, car keys in one hand, and my old suitcase in the other. Before we continue, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been surrounded by people who made you question your own reality? Share your thoughts in the comments. Because the moment I saw that suitcase again, I knew everything I'd feared was about to come true. The morning it all happened began like any other. I woke before sunrise, the ache in my knees reminding me that my body was long past pretending to be young. I shuffled to the kitchen, made my coffee, and stood by the window watching the sky slowly lighten over the lake. Robert used to join me for that ritual. We'd talk about the weather, the neighbors, or nothing at all. That morning, the silence was heavier. It had weight. I couldn't explain why, but something in the air felt wrong. Then I heard footsteps. Brooke never rose early. She was the kind who drifted out of bed closer to mid-morning, claiming she needed her beauty rest. But at 6 a.m., there she was, fully dressed, hair tied back, keys in one hand, her face set in an expression I couldn't read. "Good morning," I said softly, trying not to startle her. She jumped, nearly spilling what looked like a travel mug of coffee. "Oh, Vera. You scared me." That nervous laugh again, light but empty. "Couldn't sleep," she added. "Thought I'd run a few errands early." At 6 in the morning? With that suitcase sitting by the back door? I frowned. "What's in the luggage?" "Just some old clothes I'm taking to donation." It wasn't her usual voice. It was too controlled, too careful. "You're leaving it by the back door?" I asked. She hesitated for a moment, too long, and smiled. "I'll load it in the car in a minute. Don't worry about it." My stomach tightened. Something about that suitcase looked familiar. A navy blue hard shell with a silver latch. Robert had bought that set for me when we took our trip to Europe. I hadn't seen it in years. When I turned away to reach for the coffee pot, she was already moving toward the backyard. Through the window, I saw her glance toward the stairs, making sure I wasn't following, then step out into the yard with the suitcase. I waited a few seconds before I followed. I don't know why I moved quietly, but instinct told me to. From the porch, I could see her path clearly. She wasn't walking toward the car. She was heading toward the dock. Every nerve in my body went rigid. I grabbed my cane, slipped on my old slippers, and stepped out into the morning air. The grass was damp, the sky streaked with soft orange. Brooke kept looking over her shoulder, like a thief checking for witnesses. The suitcase looked heavy. She held it away from her body, struggling a little with each step. When she reached the end of the dock, she paused. The water shimmered beneath her feet, calm and cold. That's when I heard it, the faintest, most haunting sound. A thump. Then another. Then, a weak cry. My blood ran cold. She bent her knees slightly, gripping the handle of the suitcase with both hands. She was about to throw it. "Brooke!" I shouted, my voice cracking through the quiet morning. She froze. Her head snapped toward me. For a split second, our eyes met, and I saw something I hadn't seen before, not anger, not fear, but rage. Pure, hateful rage. "Don't you dare!" I screamed. "What are you doing?" She didn't answer. She only lifted the suitcase higher and swung it over the edge of the dock. The splash hit my chest like a gunshot. I don't remember deciding to run. My body simply took over. The cane clattered to the ground behind me as my legs moved faster than they had in years. I reached the dock just as Brooke stepped back, watching the water with a strange kind of satisfaction. "What did you do?" I gasped. She turned slowly. Her expression had changed, calm now, almost peaceful. "You should have stayed inside, Vera," she said quietly. "You're making things harder than they have to be." "What's in that suitcase?" My voice broke. She gave me that same little smile she'd used for months, the one that never touched her eyes. "Nothing you need to worry about." Then she turned and walked away. I looked back at the lake. The suitcase was sinking fast, small ripples spreading across the surface. The faint sound came again, a soft thump, a desperate cry. It hit me all at once. My knees gave out. There was someone, inside that suitcase. Every breath in my body turned to fire. I kicked off my slippers and dropped to my stomach, reaching for the water's edge, but it was too far. My hands couldn't reach. "Help!" I shouted. "Somebody, help!" No answer. Just the gentle hum of morning birds. I looked back toward the house. Brooke was gone. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. There was no time to think. I pulled myself up, grabbed the edge of the dock for balance, and jumped. The cold was like a slap. It burned my skin, crushed the air from my lungs, but I kept moving. I could see the faint shape of the suitcase sinking below me, bubbles escaping from the sides. My body screamed to stop, but my heart refused. I kicked harder, arms outstretched, eyes stinging from the murky water. My fingers brushed metal, the handle. I gripped it tight, pulled with everything I had left, and started for the surface. The weight nearly dragged me under again. My arms felt like they were tearing apart. My chest burned for air. But that faint cry, it was still there. I broke the surface gasping, choking, coughing, but I didn't let go. I hauled the suitcase toward the dock, inch by inch, until my arms were numb. When I finally pushed it up onto the wooden planks, I collapsed beside it, shivering, shaking, praying. Whatever was inside, it was still alive. That was the moment I realized my life would never be the same again. What I found inside that suitcase would haunt me forever. The suitcase was heavier than I thought possible. Water poured from the seams, turning the wood beneath me slick and dark. My fingers shook so violently I could barely grip the zipper. I tried once, my hand slipped. I tried again, teeth chattering, breath ragged. A faint sound came from inside, weak, desperate. That single sound gave me strength I didn't know I still had. I yanked the zipper open. What I saw made the world tilt. It was Lily. My granddaughter. My sweet little girl. Her hands were bound with duct tape, her mouth covered, her small body trembling. Her lips were blue, her eyes half open, staring at nothing. For one terrifying moment, I thought I was too late. "No, no, no, baby, no." I tore at the tape, my nails breaking, my breath catching between sobs. When I pulled the gag from her mouth, she gasped, long, shaking breaths that sounded like music and agony all at once. "Grandma," her voice was barely a whisper. "I've got you, sweetheart," I said, wrapping her in my arms. "You're safe. You're safe now." But we weren't. Behind me, I heard footsteps on the dock. Slow. Purposeful. Touching, a voice said quietly. "You always had a flair for drama." I turned. Brooke stood at the edge of the dock, her hair plastered to her face, a tire iron glinting in her hand. "You tried to kill her," I whispered. "Your own daughter." Her laugh was low and cruel. "Daughter? She's worth $2 million in insurance, thanks to Daniel's generous policy. She's more valuable than she's ever been alive." My whole body went cold. Brooke took a step closer, her voice calm, almost casual. And you, Vera, you're the final piece. Once you're gone, Daniel inherits everything. The house, the accounts, the investments. He won't even know what hit him. You planned all this, I said, barely recognizing my own voice. Of course I did. Do you think I spent years pretending to care about a woman who forgets where she puts her own keys? You were an obstacle. Now, you're a liability. She raised the tire iron. Brooke, stop. I screamed. Please, she's a child. Her smile widened. Exactly. A helpless one. She swung. I rolled aside, still clutching Lily. The tire iron slammed into the dock, sending splinters flying. Pain shot through my shoulder as I hit the boards, but I didn't let go of the child. Brooke swung again, missing by inches. I scrambled backward, shouting as loud as I could. Help. Somebody help us. The lake carried my voice, but I didn't know if anyone could hear. Brooke's face twisted with fury. You old fool. You couldn't even keep your husband alive. Now you're going to lose her too. That cut deeper than any weapon. Something inside me hardened. I shifted Lily behind me and glared up at her. You made one mistake, Brooke. She hesitated. Oh. And what's that? You underestimated me. I waited for her to swing again. The moment she did, I shoved my cane, lying nearby, across her ankles. It wasn't much, but it threw her balance off. She stumbled forward, the tire iron flying from her hand and clattering into the water. I grabbed Lily and ran, my legs screaming, my lungs burning. I didn't look back. Brooke shouted my name, but her voice faded as I crossed the lawn toward the neighbor's fence. I could hear Lily sobbing softly against my shoulder. Grandma, she whimpered. She said I was going to sleep forever. It's over now, baby, I said between gasps. You're safe. I promise. But deep down, I knew we weren't safe yet. Not until someone else saw what Brooke had done. Not until someone believed me. When I reached the Petersons' yard, I saw Martha Peterson trimming her roses. Her eyes widened when she saw me, soaked, shaking, holding a crying child wrapped in duct tape. Vera. My God, what happened? Call the police, I managed to say. Call them now. Don't let her near us. Martha didn't ask questions. She dropped her shears, rushed to her phone, and wrapped a blanket around us. I held Lily close, feeling the child's heartbeat against my chest. It was weak, but it was there. Every second felt like an hour before the sirens came. When the police arrived, I couldn't stop shaking. I told them everything, every small cruelty, every missing letter, every moment I'd been called crazy. I didn't know if they believed me. But when they opened my cloud account and saw what my hidden camera had recorded, the doubt in their eyes disappeared. That footage would become the truth no one could deny. I looked at Lily as they took her to the ambulance. Her tiny hand reached for mine, her voice hoarse but steady. You saved me, Grandma. I squeezed her hand and whispered, No, sweetheart. You saved me. I could still hear Brooke screaming my name from somewhere behind the trees, her voice sharp and furious. I didn't stop. The dock felt miles away already, and the weight of Lily in my arms reminded me why I had to keep going. My legs trembled with every step, but I refused to slow down. The wet grass clung to my feet, my breath came out in ragged bursts, and each heartbeat thundered in my ears. Lily clutched my shirt, whispering through her tears. Grandma, she's coming. Don't let her get me. She won't, I told her. Not today. We reached the edge of the yard where our property met the Petersons'. The wooden fence between us looked higher than usual, but adrenaline makes strange things possible. I shifted Lily onto my hip, leaned my shoulder against the gate, and forced it open. Across the yard, Martha Peterson was tending to her roses, humming to herself. When she turned and saw us, soaked, shaking, covered in lake water, her shears slipped from her hand. Vera. What on earth? Call the police, I gasped. Now. Brooke tried to kill us. The color drained from her face. She ran for the phone without another word. I sank to my knees in her grass, holding Lily close while Martha's voice carried through the open door. There's been an attack. Send someone right now. Lily's small hands trembled against my neck. She put me in the suitcase, she whispered, her voice breaking. She said I was going to sleep and never wake up. I closed my eyes for a moment, fighting the urge to collapse completely. You're safe now, baby. You're safe. But part of me knew we weren't, not yet. I looked back toward my house. No sign of Brooke. The dock sat quiet, the water rippling gently as if nothing had happened. That image would haunt me forever, the calm lake holding the secret of what she tried to do. Within minutes, the distant wail of sirens cut through the morning air. Relief washed over me so hard it almost knocked me over. When the first police car arrived, 2 officers rushed toward us. One of them knelt beside me, wrapping a blanket around Lily. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" "I'm fine," I said, though every muscle in my body screamed otherwise. "Please, find her. She's in the house. She tried to kill my granddaughter." They exchanged a glance but didn't hesitate. One ran toward my property while the other stayed with us. An ambulance pulled up behind them. Paramedics hurried over, checking Lily's pulse, wrapping her in warm blankets, murmuring words of comfort. Watching them work brought me back to reality. This wasn't just a nightmare. It had happened. As they lifted Lily onto a stretcher, she reached for me. "Grandma, don't let them take me away." "I'm right here," I said, gripping her hand until the paramedic gently pried it loose. "You're going to the hospital, sweetheart. They'll take care of you." My legs finally gave way, and I sat on the grass, clutching the blanket around my shoulders. Martha returned, her face pale but resolute. "They're searching your house now. She won't get far." I nodded, staring at the lake. The wind had picked up, sending tiny ripples across the surface. For a second, I thought I saw movement near the dock, but it was only a reflection. Then a female officer approached me, notepad in hand. "Mrs. Hutchins, can you tell me exactly what happened?" I tried. My voice broke more than once. I told her about Brooke's lies, the missing mail, the pills, the whispers about my sanity. I described how Brooke had carried the suitcase, how I'd seen it sink, how I'd pulled it from the water. When I mentioned the camera hidden in the sunroom clock, the officer's eyes sharpened. "You have video?" "Yes. It uploads automatically to my cloud account." I gave her the login and password from memory. She nodded and stepped aside to make a call. I could hear her saying, "Retrieve the footage." Immediately. Moments later, another officer walked up, radio crackling. "She's gone. Vehicles missing from the driveway. We've issued an alert." I wasn't surprised. Brooke had always been quick. But this time, she'd left a trail she couldn't erase. A paramedic came over and checked my pulse. "Ma'am, you need to be examined too. I'm not leaving until I know Lily's okay." He looked at me for a moment, then nodded. "All right, but stay seated." The adrenaline began to fade, replaced by exhaustion so deep I could barely lift my head. Every joint throbbed, my hands were scraped raw, and my skin stung from the cold. Yet underneath the pain, a quiet strength settled in. I had survived the unthinkable. The officer who had checked the footage returned, her expression grave. "Mrs. Hutchins, we saw it. Everything. The suitcase, the attack, she's caught on camera. We've issued a warrant." My eyes filled with tears. For months, Brooke had made me feel invisible, unheard. Now, for the first time, someone believed me. Martha knelt beside me, resting a hand on my shoulder. "You saved that child's life, Vera. I looked toward the ambulance where Lily lay wrapped in white blankets, her small face calm for the first time in months. "No," I whispered. "She saved mine." As the ambulance doors closed, I caught one last glimpse of Lily's hand waving weakly through the glass. The siren started, fading into the distance. I sat there in the grass until the world stopped spinning, until the only sound left was the gentle hum of police radios and the rustle of the wind through the trees. That was the moment I realized something vital. Brooke hadn't just tried to take our lives. She had underestimated what an old woman with nothing left to lose could do. They took us to the hospital together, though Lily was rushed straight to the emergency room. I sat in a small cubicle wrapped in a blanket, my hands trembling as an officer took my statement. The doctor said Lily was stable. She'd swallowed something, traces of a sedative, but they'd caught it in time. When they told me that, I broke down completely. Relief can feel heavier than fear. While they checked my vitals, I saw another officer enter the room. A woman in her 40s, sharp-eyed but kind. "Mrs. Hutchins, I'm Detective Morrison. I want you to know we've reviewed your footage." I gripped the edge of the blanket. "You saw it?" She nodded slowly. "Every second. Your daughter-in-law carried that suitcase to the dock herself. It's all there, clear as day. You did everything right." For months, I'd been made to feel like I was losing my mind. To hear those words, "You did everything right," was like air after drowning. Detective Morrison made a few calls from the hallway. Within hours, they located Brooke's car abandoned outside a gas station 10 miles away. She hadn't made it far. By evening, they had her in custody. The next day, Daniel arrived at the hospital. I'll never forget his face when he walked into my room, pale, exhausted, his eyes red from crying. He didn't speak right away. He just sank to his knees beside my chair and said, "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I rested my hand on his shoulder. "She fooled you, Daniel. She fooled everyone." He shook his head, tears spilling down his cheeks. "You tried to tell me, and I didn't listen." "Don't carry that guilt," I said softly. "Carry what matters now, Lily." He nodded, and for the first time in months, I saw the boy I'd raised instead of the man she had molded. When the detectives searched the house, everything I'd written in my notebook lined up perfectly with what they found: missing mail, fake signatures, bank transfers. Brooke had been moving small amounts of money into hidden accounts for nearly a year. But that was only the beginning. Her laptop revealed internet searches no one could misunderstand: life insurance payouts for accidental deaths, how long can a child survive without air, how to fake dementia symptoms. Each one felt like a knife turning deeper. They even discovered she'd tried this before: an elderly woman in Oregon, dead from an accidental fall. The woman had left everything to Brooke in a revised will. That death had been ruled an accident. Until now. The pieces fell into place like a puzzle I never wanted to solve. Brooke had targeted Daniel from the start. She'd seen a successful widower with an aging mother and a soft heart. She'd built her life around that opportunity. The most horrifying part came from Lily herself, or rather, Sophie. That was her real name. Once she felt safe enough to speak, she told the investigators that Brooke wasn't her mother at all. She'd taken her from a park in Oregon after her real mother died suddenly. I sat beside Sophie during her interview, holding her hand as she told the truth in that trembling little voice. She said if I told anyone, she'd hurt Grandma Vera. The agents exchanged looks. They realized what Brooke truly was: a kidnapper, a fraud, and nearly a murderer. The charges stacked higher by the day: attempted murder, kidnapping across state lines, fraud, identity theft, and more. When the trial began months later, I sat in the front row with Daniel and Sophie beside me. Brooke walked in wearing the same smirk she'd worn that morning by the lake. But this time, it didn't hold power. Her lawyer spoke of misunderstandings and mental stress. The jury didn't buy it. Not after watching the footage of her dragging that suitcase. Not after hearing the recordings of her voice from the house security files. When it was my turn to testify, I stood slowly, leaning on my cane, and looked straight at her. "You spent months convincing everyone I was confused," I said. "You made me doubt my own mind. But you forgot one thing. People like me, we've lived too long to give up that easily. You tried to make me disappear, and now it's you who'll be forgotten." The courtroom was silent. Even Brooke looked away. The jury didn't take long. They found her guilty on every count. The judge sentenced her to life without parole. When he read the verdict, Daniel reached for my hand, and I felt his grip tighten, not from fear this time, but relief. Reporters waited outside the courthouse. They wanted quotes, reactions, headlines. I didn't give them any. I wasn't interested in fame or praise. I just wanted peace. That night, back in my sunroom, I watched the sunset over the lake again, the same view where it had all begun. The water was calm. The air was soft. For the first time in years, my house felt like home again. Sophie slept upstairs, her small breath steady and safe. Daniel was in the kitchen cleaning up after dinner, humming under his breath. The sound was ordinary, and I cherished it more than anything. I picked up my old notebook, the one I'd hidden under my mattress, and flipped through its pages. Every entry told a story of doubt and endurance. Every word reminded me that sometimes, survival isn't about strength, it's about believing yourself when no one else will. I closed the notebook and whispered, "It's over, Robert. She can't hurt us anymore." But even as I said it, I knew this wasn't just the end of a nightmare, it was the beginning of something else. A life where I was no longer invisible. To anyone watching this right now, if you've ever been told you're too old, too fragile, or too forgetful to know the truth, don't believe it. Sometimes, the sharpest eyes belong to those who've lived the longest. It's been 6 months since that morning at the lake, yet I still wake before sunrise. Some habits don't fade with age. I pour my coffee, sit in my sunroom, and watch the light stretch across the water. The world feels calm again. My son, Daniel, still visits every day after his hospital shifts. He's quieter now, more thoughtful, as if he's carrying both guilt and gratitude in equal measure. But he's healing, so am I. And then there's Sophie, the little girl who once lived in fear but now laughs loud enough to fill every corner of this house. She's growing stronger every day. The nightmares have lessened. She's going to therapy, learning that she's safe and loved. Sometimes, she still slips and calls me Grandma Lily, then quickly corrects herself with a shy smile. I tell her she can call me whatever she likes, because love doesn't need names to feel real. Our lives are quieter now, but not empty. The silence that used to ache feels gentle these days. I tend to my garden again. I bake bread on Sundays. I sit on the dock where it all happened and let the wind remind me I'm still here. The lake no longer frightens me. It feels different, almost forgiving, as though it understands what we both survived. People still stop me sometimes when I'm in town. They whisper words like hero or miracle, but I don't see myself that way. I'm just a woman who refused to stop fighting when everyone told her she was done. For months, Brooke tried to make me believe I was worthless, a burden, an old woman whose mind was slipping away. She wanted me to doubt my own senses, to question reality until I gave up completely. But I didn't. I learned that age doesn't make you powerless, it makes you aware. You notice things others miss. You read people better. You know when kindness is fake and when danger hides behind politeness. And if there's one truth I want anyone listening to remember, it's this: when you're underestimated, that's your greatest advantage. Brooke's mistake wasn't in her planning. It was in assuming that time had made me weak. She forgot that people who've lived through loss, illness, heartbreak, and survival carry a kind of strength that can't be measured by muscle or speed. I still keep the notebook that saved me. It sits on the shelf by my husband's picture. Sometimes I read it, not out of bitterness, but as a reminder of how close I came to disappearing. Each page reminds me that even in darkness, clarity can come if you trust yourself enough to see it. There's peace in knowing the truth is out. Brooke is serving multiple life sentences. The authorities found every trace of her crimes, even the life she stole from others before us. She'll never hurt anyone again. Sophie's adoption papers were finalized last month. Daniel cried through the entire hearing. When the judge asked Sophie if she wanted to take Daniel's last name, she looked up at him and said, "Yes, because he's my dad now." I don't think I've ever seen my son smile like that before. Some nights, I sit on the porch and look up at the stars. I talk to Robert, even if no one else believes he's listening. I tell him about Sophie's progress, about Daniel's laughter, about how the house feels alive again. "See?" I whisper. "We made it." Growing old used to scare me. Now I see it differently. It's not the fading of life, it's proof that you've endured. Every wrinkle, every ache, every scar tells a story of survival. So, to whoever is hearing this, whether you're young or old, strong or tired, remember, you matter. Your instincts matter. Your truth matters. Don't let anyone convince you that your voice is too quiet to be heard. Because the day you start doubting yourself is the day someone else takes control of your story. I still live by the lake. The sun rises the same way it always has, gold light spreading across the ripples like a promise. I breathe in, close my eyes, and smile. I survived. Not because I was brave, or fast, or lucky. But because I refused to stop believing myself when no one else would. My name is Vera Hutchins. I'm 73 years old. I saved my granddaughter. I exposed a murderer. And I'm still here, living, breathing, and stronger than I've ever been. Before you go, let me ask you one last thing. If you believe that truth always finds its way to light, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Because sometimes, the stories we tell are reminders of what real courage looks like, and courage doesn't come from youth. It comes from surviving.